Hello and welcome. I'm Hasina and you're watching World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. President Donald Trump has announced that the U.S. will designate Saudi Arabia as a major non-NATO ally, unveiling the move during a White House dinner honoring Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and celebrating, in his words, the largest arms purchase in history, worth $142 billion. Trump has praised the Crown Prince's role in regional diplomacy and signed a new strategic defense agreement. Brazil has approved the Chinese Navy's 178-meter hospital ship Arc Silk Road to dock in Rio from January 8th to 15th. Meanwhile, the U.S. oceanographic ship Ronald H. Brown is set to arrive in Suape from January 14 to 21st, highlighting growing China-U.S. naval activity in South America. The U.S. has withdrawn its Typhoon mid-range missile system from Iwakuni, Japan, a launcher capable of firing 1,800-kilometer range Tomahawk and SM-6 missiles. The system, first deployed for the Resolute Dragon 2025 exercise, remained on site beyond the planned withdrawal, amid rising tensions between Beijing and Tokyo. China resumes buying U.S. soybeans as media reports suggest. China bought 14 cargo ships carrying U.S. soybeans on Monday, which is the highest since January, as this move by China gives an ease over earlier Trump-Xi summit outcomes and the discussed issue of U.S. farm products amid heightened tensions among U.S. farmers. Chinese Premier Li Qiang has told President Vladimir Putin while visiting the Kremlin that China is determined to purchase mutually beneficial cooperation with Russia, as both sides praised their comprehensive strategic partnership and recent high-level meetings between their presidents, as both countries vowed to continue cooperation. Oman has announced it is open to Chinese archaeological cooperation, with official delegation inviting Chinese scholars to join projects as Oman promotes its 5 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Chinese Premier Li Qiang has told Mongolian Prime Minister Gomboja Zandan Shatar that China is ready to expand trade, boost cooperation, and align development strategies to strengthen their comprehensive strategic partnership, while Mongolia reaffirmed its One China policy, praised China's support, and vowed to deepen cooperation. The UAE has expressed solidarity with India after a bus carrying Umrah pilgrims collided with an oil tanker near Medina, killing at least 45 Indian pilgrims and injuring others this week. A Telangana delegation led by Minister Muhammad Azhar Haduddin has arrived in Saudi Arabia to support families, coordinate with authorities, and implement relief measures. Now we start with U.S. and Saudi ties. U.S. President Donald Trump has hosted the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman at a black-tie White House dinner, capping a visit aimed at showcasing deepening U.S.-Saudi ties at the White House as Riyadh seeks to tighten its strategic partnership with Washington. Portugal's soccer star Cristiano Ronaldo and Tesla CEO Elon Musk also joined the high-level dinner at the White House. During the dinner, Trump announced the United States would designate Saudi Arabia a major non-NATO ally, a status that brings military and economic benefits short of a formal defense pact. Let's listen in.
Tonight, I'm pleased to announce that we're taking our military cooperation to even greater heights by formally designating Saudi Arabia as a major non-NATO ally, which is something that is very important to them, and I'm just telling you now for the first time because I wanted to keep a little secret for tonight.
Earlier at a press briefing with the two leaders, Trump had said that the United States and Saudi had reached a defense agreement and that the U.S. would sell F-35 stealth fighter jets to Saudi Arabia. Trump has also said that he can see a civilian nuclear deal happening with Saudi. Let's listen in.
We're going to have a deal. They're going to purchase F-35s. They're buying them from Lockheed, and it's a great plane. We make, by the way, the best military equipment. You saw that during the Iran little skirmish. We make the best planes, the best missiles. We make the best offensive missiles. We make the best military equipment in the world.
Meanwhile, President Trump has also stated that he is working to approve the sale of advanced U.S. AI chips to Saudi Arabia. Trump also said that Saudi Arabia had agreed to invest $600 billion in the United States, with the Saudi Crown Prince promising an increase in investment to even $1 trillion. The Crown Prince, in response, has said that the kingdom would increase U.S. investment to $1 trillion. Let's listen in.
We are not creating fake opportunities to, please America, please President Trump. It's real opportunities. For example, when you ask about the AI and the chips, Saudi Arabia have a huge demand of, a huge need of computing power, and we're going to spend in the short term around $50 billion by consuming those semiconductors for our needs in Saudi Arabia. And with the agreement that we're going to have with North America, that will allow us to focus that consuming power in the short term by $50 billion from the South America, and long term with hundreds of billions of dollars in the long term. So there is a lot of real opportunities that fit to our need in Saudi Arabia and fit to our investment strategy.
Now for this discussion, we welcome Shruti Das Gupta. She's a foreign affairs expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Shruti, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, what do you see, or how are you analyzing all these new developments that's coming in between these Saudi and U.S. relationship? How will the Trump decision to designate Saudi Arabia as a major non-NATO ally change things?
Greetings, Asuma. Thank you so much for inviting me. What I understand is that Trump is looking towards the Middle East to fill up the coffers of the depleted coffers of USA, and hence the made $600 billion investment is by November a $1 trillion investment, with the Saudi prince chuckling while he's sitting in the interview saying, "You're increasing the money every time we speak." So it shows that US is looking towards Middle East for the money it can get out of it, and whether it has to give away the major non-NATO ally tag to Qatar or to Saudi Arabia, they would not hesitate, because it would ensure that the money in the system is flowing, because the US obviously is looking towards a $33 trillion debt. And the debt cycle is continuous, with the expenditures going up rather than down, and the Golden Dome and other expansive projects which would continue to drain resources rather than build them. So one of my observations is that this is what they really want out of deals with the Middle Eastern nations. The other, I understand, is look whom they are arming. Like, they have not just talked about the F-35 aircraft, they've also talked about selling of tanks. So they're arming Saudi Arabia. But on the other hand, if you look, the US Marine have disengaged from the peacekeeping forces around Saudi Arabia, and that particular spots have become open to other nations. Pakistan had another pet of USA and Trump at this moment, has gone and applied for those positions. So there may be a major skirmish in the future of Middle East, for which USA is helping to arm these nations, provide alternative forces in action, like the Pakistan. Bangladesh wanted to apply, but because of their local situations, they were not able to finalize a deal as of now. They are disengaging the US forces from that particular region. So these particular trade benefits, of which defense is a large part, shows that there might be something planning there. They're probably arming them to protect against Iranian interests, to preserve Israeli interests. So there are multiple layers to these conversations that we are having. We cannot just look at it in normal terms at saying that they've made defense deals. They have made defense deals, and they're planning for a future that might be a little bit more scary than we can predict as of now.
Right, and building on that, given Trump's framing of the new US-Saudi Strategic Defense Pact as a step towards everlasting peace, however, it's different from what you just said or predicted that could lead, or what all this could be leading towards. How realistic is his claims or his vision, considering regional tensions, as you rightfully mentioned, ongoing conflicts, and Saudi Arabia's expanding geopolitical ambitions?
So I'm not looking at Saudi Arabia's expansion or geopolitical ambitions. What I'm looking at is arming people that are safeguarding Israeli interests and blockading Iranian interests. Both these, when a nation kind of shores up both these factors, US is ready to go ahead and work with that. So Qatar, of course, is doing that for them. They're extending a friendly nod towards Israel and are definitely anti-Iran in their policies, and so is Saudi. And so these two nations have been given the MNNA status. They're arming them, their defense deal. The civil nuclear deal that they've been talking about may also be indication towards ensuring that Iran is on its tiptoes, with its own nuclear plans being the reason for the 12-day skirmish that we just saw between Israel and Iran. So another Middle Eastern nation having these particular access to technology, access to nuclear power, whether in terms of civil resources only, would put Iran on guard, and which would probably stop Iran's ambitions if it ever had any. So there are for me, there are multiple levels to this. They may be talking about peace, but that peace is coming through preparation for war. It is not going to come through just talking and smiling across tables. It's arming for the worst possible outcome. And that is how Trump's vision is actualizing in the Middle East.
Right. Thank you very much, Shruti, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you. Now, we stay on this topic. US President Donald Trump has said that he has gotten a positive response from Saudi in the Abraham Accords. He has also added that Israel will be happy about the US-Saudi F-35 deal that was finalized during Trump's meeting with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. As well as the Crown Prince has reaffirmed that while Saudi wants to be part of the Abraham Accords, it also wants to make a clear path for a two-state solution. Let's listen in.
Yeah, so definitely we believe having a good relation with all Middle Eastern countries, it's a good thing, and we want to be part of the Abraham Accord, but we want also to be sure that we secure a clear path of two-state solution. And today we have a healthy discussion with Mr. President that we're going to work on that to be sure that we can prepare the right situation as soon as possible to have that.
Now we welcome back Shruti Das Gupta. She's a foreign affairs expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Shruti, for staying with us. Now, looking at this, how do you think Israel is seeing all this? And how could Israel's reaction to both the F-35 deal and Saudi's two-state emphasis shape future diplomatic alignments between them? Yes.
I believe that Israel is looking positively towards this two-state solution, though not optimistically, because they have offered this particular deal, I think, during the Clinton era time also, and the Palestinians at that time also were not accepting of those particular offers. So they know that no matter what is offered to them, there is going to be a problem in the Middle East. The Abrahamic Accords, of course, help bring the major powers of the Middle East to the table, and at least if that is signed out, there might be some era of peace for Israel, specifically after these continuous years of war. So what I understand is, this is where I said that as long as the interests of Israel are met, Saudi will become a good partner to USA, and that is exactly how this has played forth. Now, for the F-35s, now I know that there is a hesitancy in a large number of critics of this particular deal, because they have felt that there is a large amount of Chinese influence on Saudi Arabia, and a stealth of technology is something that they feel could be on the cards if Saudi Arabia gets access to F-35s, which is now their major war horse. And it kind of puts Israel in a position of not being the sole owner of this advanced technology in the Middle East. So its trump card is now being shared with another nation, And of course, it puts him on edge, because while these nations are sitting down on Abrahamic Accords, they're talking of two-state solution and they're talking of peace. If they do not, by a mere nod, there can be a lot of trouble for Israel via official state actors as well as non-official state actors. So it does keep them a little jumpy on that particular table also. So it's a mixed reaction. They would hope that the Saudis on their side of deal. I would assume that any action that was taken against, let's say, Iran, they needed to fly over Saudi airspace, the planes. There was a lot of support handed out by both Qatar and Saudi Arabia during that Iran-Israel war. So I do believe that they're hopeful that these nations would continue to support USA and via USA, Israel. But I don't know how long the peace that would be brokered through Abrahamic Accords hold.
Right. Thank you very much, Shruti Dasgupta, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we move on to our next news. Now, moving on, U.S. President Donald Trump has again denied that he had anything to do with the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Meanwhile, the U.S. Senate has approved legislation to force the public release of Justice Department files on the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, advancing the measure without a formal roll call vote. This comes after the Republican-controlled U.S. House of Representatives voted to force the release of the files. Now the bill is in the process of being formally transmitted to the White House to be signed into law by President Donald Trump. On the Senate floor, Democratic leader Chuck Schumer accused Trump of having tried to cover up for Jeffrey Epstein long enough and said that Congress was stepping in to finally compel the Department of Justice to release the Epstein files. Schumer has also stressed that the push was not a partisan fight, but a response to intense public pressure for disclosure. Let's listen into what Chuck Schumer has said.
Well, Mr. President, Donald Trump has tried to cover up for Jeffrey Epstein long enough. It's time that the Senate finish the job to finally compel the Department of Justice to release the Epstein files. A few hours ago, the House of Representatives passed their Epstein bill with as lopsided as a vote as you can get, 427 to 1. It's now the Senate's turn. In a few moments, I will ask unanimous consent for the Senate to pass the Epstein bill as soon as it comes over from the House. My unanimous consent request guarantees that the Senate will immediately pass the Epstein Files Transparency Act without any further action as soon as it comes over from the House. This isn't about Democrats versus Republicans or about Congress versus the President. This is about giving the American people the transparency they've been crying for. This is about holding accountable all the people in Jeffrey Epstein's circle who raped, groomed, targeted, and enabled the abuse of hundreds of girls for years and years. The American people have waited long enough. Jeffrey Epstein's victims have waited long enough. Let the truth come out. Let transparency reign. And I urge my Republican colleagues, let the Senate act.
Now for this discussion, we welcome back Shruti Dasgupta. She's a foreign affairs expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Shruti, for staying with us. Now looking at this, what are the political risks and implications of sitting President Trump when Congress advances legislation related to a case in which he has publicly denied involvement, but the pictures, the history, everything else proves otherwise? And also, how long do you think Trump can try to distance himself from his past after these files come out?
Well, he has a large area where he can kind of manipulate things despite it passing through the House. And I believe the Senate has already said they're ready to rubber stamp this through. So despite both houses passing it, there is a large area where he can continue to live in the gray zone. The funny part that I've said many times on your show is that this Epstein file is something that he was a major cause in MAGA voters, and he whipped this horse until it ran to the finish line. And now, when it comes to full disclosure, he has been balking at it. So I don't think there might be something too incriminating, because otherwise he wouldn't have made this such a giant campaign slogan, because it could backfire, and like it is right now. But there should be enough to show that he's not a very nice man, and definitely not a very scrupulous businessman. So these are things that he probably wants to not talk about. He's willing to prosecute Clintons and the others, but he doesn't want the curtain on his deeds to be lifted. So this is the fallacy of the Epstein files, because before elections it was the Republicans' cause, and for which they asked for votes, and now after elections this has become the Democrats' cause for justice rather than the Republicans, and the Republicans have been seen trying to push it back as much as possible. Now, let's talk about whether if it passes through. Now, Trump has publicly said that he will not veto the full disclosure of it. So it would give the pretense that he is ready for full disclosure, and he has nothing to hide. But there is an asterisk mark on this. There is a clause that says, until and unless a particular information is going to affect an ongoing investigation, in that particular circumstance, the Department of Justice is allowed to withhold that particular information. Now, that is the gray zone that I've been talking about. Any information that Trump does not want to release publicly, or his allies don't want released publicly, can be conveniently put in this particular column and be redacted from public scrutiny. Beyond that, any person that is holding Epstein files as leverage, political leverage, economic leverage, any other kind of leverage, he can put them in this particular zone and again block it from public view and scrutiny. So despite all the drama that is happening around it, and it being used by majority and others, Republicans themselves, to pull the rug from under Trump's feet, there is still a large amount that he can do with it without actually looking like the bad guy on television.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Shruti Dasgupta for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now, moving on to Russia. Russian President Vladimir Putin has met India's External Affairs Minister Subrahmanyam Jaishankar at the Kremlin. Jaishankar, who co-chairs the Russia-India Intergovernmental Commission, discussed trade, economic and cultural cooperation with the Russian leader. Several senior Russian officials joined the meeting, including presidential aide Yuri Ushakov, Deputy Chief of Staff Maxim Oreshkin, Economic Development Minister Maxim Reshetnikov, and also Deputy Foreign Minister Andrei Rudenko. The talks highlighted ongoing high-level engagement between Moscow and New Delhi. Now for this discussion, we welcome retired Major General and Dr. Rajan Kochhar. He's a senior strategic and international affairs expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Dr. and Major General, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, looking at this, how might India and Russia's continued high-level engagement affect both their strategic balancing between the Western countries and U.S.?
Thank you, Subha.
Thank you.
Very interesting opening question you have actually made, because we follow a path of strategic autonomy, and we would like to have a friendship with everybody, whether it is China, Russia, or the United States. So considering that framework of our foreign policy, I think this engagement must be viewed in that context. It should not be viewed that we are trying to build up a counter to the United States, because there are some quarters in the United States which feel that closeness of India to Russia is detrimental to Indo-US relations. So I don't think we should put that to rest. Now, what is important here is that a reference to context or a perspective. India-Russia ties are actually among the most steadiest relationship in the world after the Second World War, and we have seen Russians emphasizing on a long-term partnership with India. And recently, if you would remember in Operation Sindoor, how the S-400 Russian Triumph S-400 Triumph Russian air defense system was used by India to a great effect, and we are in the process of getting the latest version of S-500 also. So, considering these important aspects, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar is trying to build up a path where the non-tariff barriers are going to be simplified with Russia. One concern of India as far as Russia is concerned is the trade imbalance. If you look at India-Russia trade, it is $68.7 billion. We are exporting to Russia only 4.88 billion. So there is a trade deficit of $58.9 billion. So I think Minister Jaishankar is trying to emphasize in this visit that how do we narrow this barrier, because it's too much one-sided. Next important aspect is the energy sector. As we talk about oil, Russia remains central to India relations, and I think though there are reports that we have reduced our oil imports from Russia, but they will continue because that is a strategic necessity for India, and also the economic necessity for India. This meeting is also significant, Suma, because Putin is likely to visit India at the end of this year. So Minister Jaishankar has met Putin. He has apprised him about the annual India-Russia summit, and a part of that dialogue, especially under the cloud of US-India tariff issues, because this becomes important. Global governance is also an issue which India wants to take up with Russia, especially the need to reform institutions like the UN Security Council. And also, we are also trying to formalize the trade corridors. The North-South Atlantic corridor is a point in question. And we are trying to ensure that these corridors get operationalized, because what I look at the future is we must have alternative supply chain management routes available to us, because in case the situation in the Middle East gets bad, and we have seen how the Houthis have target the Bab el Mandab Strait and the Red Sea area. So we need to have things like these northern sea routes. The Chennai-Vladivostok corridor is also very, very promising, and I think in times to come it's going to play a very big role. It's going to cut down on the costs also, because if you have these kind of dedicated corridors and you are moving your goods by the sea, it is cost effective. So the strategic gains for India, I would sum it up in this manner. The strategic gains for India with a friendship to Russia's energy security, point number one. Defense and technology is very, very important, and that's the second point, because we have embarked on a process of defense modernization, and Russia is going to be a very, very critical partner for us. The third is the multipolar polar leverage we have with Russia, because Russia gives us a leverage in this multipolar world, and it has always stood by us. Even if you look at the history in the United Nations Security Council, any resolution which is concerning India, Russia has always, supported.
Yes.
And larger implications are that Kremlin and New Delhi
Yes.
are embarking on a new path now because this entire world geopolitics today is in a state of flux. So I think this visit, if you look at this visit from a long-term vision, it's a very significant one, and especially in the context of the Indo-US relations. So I think
Yes.
Putin's visit to India will be a trailblazer.
Right. Thank you very much for shedding light on this and the history, connecting it with the history in between these two countries. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, Russia says it will not take part in upcoming talks on Ukraine set to be held in Turkey. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov has said that the discussions are happening without Moscow's involvement, and Russia will wait to hear what is actually discussed after. He added that President Vladimir Putin is open to follow-up conversations if Turkish or US officials decide to brief Moscow afterwards. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has arrived in Turkey now as part of a renewed push to revive peace talks with Russia. Speaking earlier in Spain, Zelensky said he will meet with President Recep Tayyip Erdogan to explore every possible way to secure what he called a just peace for Ukraine. Let's in fact listen into what the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has shared.
Зустріч з президентом Ердоганом, передусім. Ми будемо говорити з ним про максимальні можливості, як зробити так, щоб Україна отримала справедливий мир. І це, я думаю, це достатньо буде бесіда предметна, може довга, може не дуже довго. Подивимось, у мене хороші відносини з президентом Туреччини. Будемо говорити. Маємо якісь позиції і сигнали від Сполучених Штатів. Подивимось завтра.
There have been no direct talks between Kyiv and Moscow since negotiations in Istanbul back in July. A Turkish source has said that U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff was also expected in Turkey, but another official clarified that Erdogan's meeting will be only with Zelensky in Ankara. The visit marks a fresh attempt to restart diplomacy amid the ongoing war. Now we welcome back retired Major General Dr. Rajan Kochhar. He's a senior strategic and international affairs expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General and Doctor, for staying with us. Now, what are we to make of this move by Russia? What leverage, if any, does Russia gain by refusing to participate in the Turkey-hosted talks, while remaining open to post-discussion briefings? What are we to make of this?
A very good question, Suma, because it's very relevant to the present situation, what you have actually asked me. The first important aspect is to understand that Zelensky has its back to the wall today. The thrust lines of the Russian army and the armed forces and the inroads it is making into Ukraine and the kind of a mass usage, a swarm drones concept is being employed, missiles are being used, energy infrastructure is being targeted, winter is approaching, the people are going to protest, and they're going to ask Zelensky, what are you doing to stop the war? So I think from that context, Zelensky is desperate, and he is moving to Istanbul and other areas in Turkey to try to get public attention to the problems Ukraine is facing. He is also facing a problem with regard to his prisoners of war, which the Russians have taken, and he wants to show some progress, at least he is getting back his prisoners of war. Why Russia is not coming on the table, that's also a very interesting question, because Russia has certain red lines which Zelensky is not accepting. The red lines of Russia is that we are not going to give you back our territory, which we have captured, because especially the Donbass area, Donetsk area, Luhansk area, Zaporozhye, Kherson, all these areas are very important to Russia for holding for posterity. And therefore, they become non-negotiable. Zelensky has been, has a stated stand that he will not accept loss of territory. So I think when two parties are at variance to their thoughts, and you see, unfortunately, Trump is also sidelined himself from this discussion. I don't see much statements from Trump coming in support of Zelensky, and also he has expressed his apprehension on the stand, on the rigid stand which has been taken by Putin. So, considering these facts, and that Zelensky is also asking for enhanced air defense cover, he is asking for the European Union as well as NATO to help him out, but not much help is forthcoming. So I visualize that Zelensky has gone for these talks to build up international pressure, or to send a message to Donald Trump to mediate, because he is desperate for mediation. At the same time, he doesn't want to relent on his sovereignty issues, that is the loss of territory. And Russia is sensing an opportunity now. You see how the Russians have planned their offensive in the last 2 months. Russia is sensing an opportunity that Ukraine is weakening. The morale of the Ukrainian army is coming down, and this is the best opportunity to make ingress into Ukraine to capture more territory. So it's a culmination of these two effects, the Russian thought and the Ukrainian or the Zelensky thought, and therefore I feel that Russia is not attending here, because Russia does not want at this point of time a ceasefire,
Right. Yes.
which Ukraine is desperate for a ceasefire. So I think unless Donald Trump intervenes for a meaningful discussion, I don't think the Russians will come on the table.
Right. Thank you, Major General Doctor, for sharing not just Russia's perspective, but also Ukraine's perspective on this. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.